to.
It might feel a little more frustrating around someone who has the dominant.
Because she doesn't really know how she.
So they would technically complete
someone else.
the split.
Yeah, they would.
But it wouldn't maybe feel as healthy
Well, they have to
or
have
as like
self-say.
symbiotic.
It's not so
Yes.
much your
Yeah,
advice.
that's a great way to put it.
Well, yeah, but having it externalized can be really helpful. Because
Right.
if they're just speaking
Well, I never got
into
along
the
with my
ether,
dad,
then they
but
don't really have a reflective.
Yeah.
So if
Definitely
they're not talking to
lead
another
each other
person,
in
that's going to feel
a
like
couple
taking
ways.
notes on what they're saying or speaking.
Is there anyone watching?
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
that's
yeah,
why,
they're watching.
That's why your mom
Say
says
hi.
calls too, is because she's
I'm
like,
just saying,
it's a chance
resuming
to-
shortly.
She does. She needs to that, and
You have
I've been
Sunday calls
I've been
with
trying to
the
get her to get a therapist or whatever, but
People
like,
are waving.
I'm
How many
very-
people
They're,
are watching?
4.
Wow.
Louis joined, Michelle Shireen, Seraphim Sophiam, Sen, Sarah Castro, Lucas, Diana Ellie Vin,
Diana.
Janisha, yeah, yep, shout outs. I am
Sounds good.
Yelitsa Vita,
we had a
Lawrence,
nice conversation.
Abigator.
For like, 35
Alright,
minutes.
thank you all for joining. We're going to be resuming. Hey, Michelle
like,
Shireen.
God, like I haven't had that a dozen times. You
Jeez,
know?
first,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's start it up.
Hang on a second. I can't initiate. You know, this is how it all works.
How
No, I know. This is it. This is my life.
much longer?
Oh, like you can leave at any point. It won't offend me at all. It'll probably be we've streamed 42 minutes. We usually do an hour, so I would say this time we started a little late. We might do another half hour.
Okay.
Right at this
Just
point.
to have an idea. I'd like to stay for the whole thing, but I have to work really early.
Oh, well, I won't be offended at all if you have to leave. So just trust your own innate feeling as it goes. All right. So, you know, one of my quips I like to say is we're all designed for relationship. Some of us are equipped for it too, you know, and that's, you know, I used to say not all of us are designed for it. I realized that's all single definitions want to hear. That's all triple splits want to hear. It's like freedom, baby. Freedom. Let me have that freedom from the relationship. And they want, you know, anyone to tell them, any other authority to give them permission. It's like anytime I have someone come for me for a partnership reading, if it's a single definition person, I immediately know they want permission to leave their partner. Or if they're triple split, or if, you know what I mean? Or if they're quad split. If they're split, I know they want me to tell them how to make it work. This is the difference, right? This is one of the core ways we can look at it. And when I say split, I'm talking only simple or wide. Now, there are differences. We're going to get into the differences in the simple and the wide. But either way, the split is here to help the rest of us know how to make a relationship work. And they do it in different ways, and we'll talk about it. But first I want to kind of set the context for it. So I touched on in the first half that we, you know, are in a yin universe. We are in a female sort of cosmos, if I can call it that. Hey, Clara. Yay. You're, she's... Context. Okay, so it's a yin kind of, you know, the name of the game is cooperation, and just like the gender of the fetus is decided in the womb during the development and gestation period, so is the gender of our cosmos. I know it sounds weird, but in this last round, in the last 19,000 years or so, it was decided to be female, which is why the double yang crystals are being destroyed effectively because there's no more use for them. Now this gets into some deep rave cosmology. I just kind of pepper that in to hint at the context for what is cooperation. Cooperation is not some random thing like we just randomly have to get along. Cooperation is integral to the human experience. It is integral to our coexistence with each other. It is in fact what the nine-centered being is here for, to have relationships that work through communication, not sex. The fundamental bond for the seven-centered being was through sex. The fundamental bond for the nine-centered being is through communication. It doesn't mean that we have to become sexless beings. It simply means that the value of sex changes when it's no longer seen as the solution to, you know, relationship issues, and when you can see communication, true communication, as the solution. And what is communication? That is the differentiated outer authority. I mean, that's what we get to for those of you who've studied motivation or who've studied the aspects of the personality side. Your motivation, for instance, I am desire, Jenny is hope. If anyone happens to know theirs, you can tell. If you don't, it's okay.
Oh, I forgot.
But, you know, people have different motivations. We found out
I
our
think
friend...
mine's hope too. I think mine's hope too.
Your hope, right, yeah. And so each of these motivations is a way that we communicate to the other and can actually help us in our relationship to the other when we are not in our transference. And we'll do a different class, or you can look online for information about motivation and transference. But effectively, my true motivation is desire, just like Mike. And so when I'm in desire, I can actually communicate with a differentiated, intelligent way in relationship to the other, and I can use my desire to communicate to them to reach them, and I can say, what outcomes should we have, or what's important. I can kind of even act as a pep talk person to help align them to theirs. Like for you with hope, I would say, hey, don't sweat it, just focus on what's worth hoping for. Is it really worth hoping for this? And if you believe it is, then that's enough, because that's my desire helping your hope, and we're communicating together through and then you can use your hope to say, hey Jonah, I know you're really hoping that's going to work out. I'm here to tell you that's not worth investing in that future. It's not going to work. Instead, why don't you hope for this other thing? It's so much more worthy of your hope. So I mean, you wouldn't do it exactly like that. I mean, it's more like a guru. The persona sort of hope is the guru. So it's always the guru that prepares you to hope for the right things, to hope for the right calls, to hope for the right opportunities, and so on.
How do you know what your desire is?
How do you know if you're a desire or if you're... It's, if you look on transparentmatrix.com, it'll tell you, depending what your chart is, it might just tell you. Some charts will have motivation. Others, like the Jovian Archive, the My Body Graph, they don't have it. Genetic Matrix does, but it's a little hard to find, but you can find it in there. I think it's under like mind something. You have to click on mind first. Okay, but anyway, so we have our outer authority for others, to relate to others, to connect with others. Part of that is because that's this imperative of this world right now, is to be relational. We are relational beings. And it's also, even before that, it's in the very wheel. I mean, I love listening to Ra's work on the Godheads of the wheel. For anyone who hasn't studied the wheel, if you just look up human design mandala, you'll see this rave mandala, this beautiful wheel of the 64 hexagrams. And it's inscrutable at first. At first it makes no sense. But you start to see the beautiful patterns. Make sure to get a high resolution enough one. Print it out if you can. Get a high res printout. I actually had a really nice big printout of the Godheads and everything. Made by Jan van den Berg. He made a nice high-res version you can find online. You can actually get it overnight printed for $20, this big, and put it on your wall. I mean, it's a great study aid. But in any case, looking at the wheel, what you'll see is the wheel moves. It's so funny. I was listening to my gate 46, which is the beginning of the quarter of duality, which is all about relationship. It's all about cooperation. It's all about getting along. If you look at what I'm here as a programming agent to do, it's to have all of what Ra calls nonviolent competition, which we take for granted, but that's the foundation of the world we live in, where you can say who's best qualified for this job, not who's the strongest, and not using muscle and brawn and power and so on. And so in any case, when you get to that side of the wheel, and then it's so funny because I was listening to Ra talk about the Hades Godhead, which happens when you get actually to the yangest of all the yang. In the quarter of initiation, you get to gate 1, and that's in Hades. And if you look at what it is in the context of Hades, along with gate 14 and some other stuff there, it's basically what the yang is interested in. If you want to know what human design says about what yang energy is interested in, it's the accumulation of wealth and power to leave a lasting mark basically on the world. It's like this ridiculous, in the context of cooperation, doesn't really actually matter that much. It would as the yang, or all the way up. Now, base 2 and base 4 are much more, they each have one yin. This is why the double yang are being destroyed, because they have nothing within them that cooperates. They all, at their foundation, are all double yang. It's force in the service of force. And so you can literally say that 1/4 of the people born today have that yang foundation and or are base 4. I guess that's actually 1/5 of people. But it's some interesting statistics you can look at there. When you look at the amount of people out there in the world that are born to really be, I mean, you're born in the quarter of your base. Well, you're base 1, but you're both double yang, and you have double yang lines for your gate 41, right? Because that's in the quarter of initiation.
I'm quarter of mutation.
Oh, mutation. My bad then. Okay, my bad. So
mutation is what begins with 1, right? Gate 1.
Yeah. It begins with yin and
whatever the last one is. The fourth.
Yeah, the double yang is what begins initiation.
Right.
And then initiation leads to civilization. And that really, it tells a story. And I know this is very obscure. We're going to get back to the surface in a moment. But this is setting the groundwork. We look at what the human experience is about. It's about coming out there and initiating something, starting something, manifesting it. Then you get to building up that civilization. Then once you build it, you have to live together. If you think about, here's what, Rob pointed out. There can be major cities that only have 300 shooting deaths in a year, and we say that's horrible, 300, but there's like millions of people live there. I mean, this is a feat. We should pat ourselves on the back here that we as humans have been able to coexist without this. This is a tremendous, tremendous feat that we just take for granted. It is the feat of being able to cooperate. Well, once you've procreated, which is the way you cooperate, then, or you've chosen not to procreate, but however it is, you found a way to cooperate, you give back to your tribe in some way. And, but this is, again, the program. I'm not saying it's good. I mean, break your covenant with all gods, I'm not a friend of the program. Don't do what the program says here, I'm just saying this is the human program. And you see it right there in the wheel, that after cooperation, all that's left is mutation, which is getting ready to die. And that's where you see that's all that's really left is you want to, leave your mark, or whittle away the hours, or have some experiences, or there's not really that much left. But you see that cooperation is really a huge part of what the human experience is, and relationship. So here's the real meat of it then.
If you're to start the cycle again though.
After mutation?
After mutation.
Yeah, after you die, then you kind of come back to life. I mean, if you think about it like as a single life, you could, or as you can think about it all different ways. I mean, it works on so many levels.
Like initiation, civilization, duality, mutation, death, rebirth.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Into
And that's the
initiation
preparation
again.
and kind of letting go. It's like letting go and closing out. Yeah, but you'll see that cooperation is such a huge part of it. So let's really get to how then do the split definitions make it work. Okay, so we know that they're equipped to make relationships work. And through compromising, really, through understanding the value of compromise. And I don't mean compromise in the general sense, I mean in the relationship analysis sense, where if you have half of a channel and somebody else has that whole channel, that's going to be what we call a compromise, and it's going to be really annoying permanently. Like, I have compromises where, Jenny has 1858, I have 58. She has 4426, I have 26. I have half that channel. She has the whole thing. She dominates. Now, as long as I steer clear and just let her dominate and don't try to interfere with her healthy functioning of that, perfect. However, if you have a compromise, for the hanging gate, it always feels like you can plug in and collaborate with them. So I always have the illusion that we can make a business together, even though ultimately it has to be her business. 4426, entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? My 26.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, Mike, I really can have a business with. He has hanging 44. The hanging gates look the same as the whole channel for the person with the hanging gate on the other side. If you catch my drift, I look at a bunch of 44s like Mike, and I look at a bunch of 4426s like Jenny, and I see a bunch of 44s. And then when I connect with the Jennies, I go, how come we can't work together? Why is there this big problem here? Why is it not connecting? Because that's why it's called a compromise, is this really difficult thing. So split definition understands compromise, first of all. The value of compromise, and you can see it as a not-self quality, you can see it as a genetic imperative, as it's programmed. I mean, someone has to be programmed to make relationships work. So there's a real not-self version of it. The not-self version is staying in the bad relationship. We can put it doesn't have to be some big trauma trip about abuse and trauma and this whole medical phrasing of it and healing phrasing. We can just talk about it as simply as alignment. If you're with people that are aligned to you, aligned to the right experiences for you, great. The not self of either way, the split definition will be making the relationships work. They'll just be making the right definitions, or the right relationships work, or the wrong ones work, is kind of what I'm trying to say. And you'll see that the quality, you're a wide split, so you'll see the quality for the wide split is going to have its own funny version of that. So I'll talk about the simple split. It's very funny. What's that? You're hoping?
Especially when you throw the hope into there.
Oh,
I feel
yeah,
like that just makes it.
Well, you're like, I'm hoping you can stop being such an idiot that you can make this relationship work. That's what the wide split is telling to their partner. But in any case, no. But you have the wisdom to tell them what they can do to make it work. Which will. Oh no. Oh jeez. Oh my God. It's okay. It's okay. Not broken. Not broken. That was really scary. Well, everyone's online still. Okay. No break. It's okay, I guess that's the whole. It's fine. We'll just leave it there. Everyone got a scare. I felt your defined spleens get a jump. Okay, well I know we're getting long in the tooth in these pontifications, so I'll finish the ruminations on the definitions as we kind of get to. I'm eager to get to the wide split, but first we're going to do the simple. So we only have one person simple split here. Statistically, that's not very common. Actually, we would expect 42% of the people. Statistically, we'd have more. Almost half would be, and your bridging gates are the 53, 52, 7, and the 8. Now what this means is there's 4 different ways you can have those 2 areas of definition bridged. Now, simple enough, if I had to put it in a formula, and here's the formula you can take, and thank you for all your patience and all the ramblings and meanderings, but here's the actual formula. I hope people put timestamps on the actual YouTube, and they go like, 57:22, he says what the formula is. I should just start with them up front. That way people can be like, got it, done, close the video. So here's the actual formula. So those bridging gates, as the not self, are going to be the eternal kind of seeming reward. Now this is not for the wide split. I don't want you to get this so much for the wide split. This is just for the simple split. And as you decondition and you don't think that you like need the reward of having that thing that's going to bring you your true. It's kind of like so let's see. We talked about it. So you're a generator. So frustration versus satisfaction. So the feeling is going to be, if I could finally get this thing off the ground, then I would be free of my frustration. Well, getting it off the ground is 53, new beginnings, right? Also, stillness, that 52. If I could finally find that stillness sitting under the tree where I could actually be in that meditation, where I could actually not have this constantly shifting focus that's like a little fly buzzing around and focusing on different things all the time, but actually sitting still and having that, meditating, whatever it is. And then the 7, that's going to be if I could actually have the direction to guide things, it's like wanting to be the power behind the throne. If I could be the one who influences the direction of where things go. And then 8, ultimately, if I could have the creative expression and do things that give me creative expression. So I would look at this, and this would be somebody who's like a consultant who directs famous people, meanwhile has their own creative voice, meanwhile they're meditating all the time and finding stillness, meanwhile they're trying to start new experiences and thinking that every time they start a new experience, maybe this new experience, maybe going to the top of this mountain, maybe walking across these rocks is going to bring me satisfaction. Because these are the 4 mirages of satisfaction, you could say. Right? Now the thing that really brings the satisfaction is the life force energy that actually goes through the channel that you have. So what channel makes you a generator, or channels, do you know off the top of your head, or is it like between which centers?
Well, it's
The G center and the sacral, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where the splits are.
I forget which one it is. I think it's the channel discovery. Sorry about that. Oh no, the 15.5.
Yeah, so that's what's going to really bring that, satisfaction, is when you're in your own rhythm, responding, sacrally responding yes to things and so on. And obviously, like we said earlier, every additional channel, if you have an emotional solar plexus channel, one of the 7 solar plexus channels, that adds the restriction. Now you have to wait for the clarity. You still have a sacral response. If you have an undefined emotional center, then you don't have that added restriction. So just to give you the formula. So these 4 gates now are the places where, as the not self, it's the worst torture, because it's the eternal mirage of, I get it, but then the frustration comes back. I get it, but then the frustration comes back. I get it, but it's not bringing me the satisfaction that I think it will. It's like the not self is promising that'll be the satisfaction, that the satisfaction is there in the stillness, or there in the new experience, or there in the creative expression, or there in being valued as the power behind the throne, really, and having those 4 gates are 53, the gate of new beginnings; 52, the gate of stillness. Those are both.
That's just for
those are in the root.
chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the 7 in the G center, and then 8 in the throat. Now, what happens as you decondition and as those lose their power over you, you start to really become an expert on them. You become an expert where you meet a 52 and you go, well, this 52 is not like those other 52s. Or, you meet Christy and you go, oh, her 53, she has a real differentiated 53. I like this 53 because she's really living her design. She's really comfortable in her, you have good feeling root energy. You don't have angsty or stressed out root energy or something, maybe because you're really living your design. And so what happens is you start to really become the expert. This is the wisdom that grows through the bridging gate. You become an expert on that, and you really start to learn and observe those people. And what happens is over time, and a lot of it happens on its own. Obviously, I'm not going to say, I mean, my dad's not into human design, and he's given me wisdom, and he's split definition. I even joked that he kept a single definition relationship going. I'm single def, and I'm with another single def person, and we normally would have broken up. But I'm telling my dad, he's saying, well, you just have to learn this and this and this and this. Now, if there's a key difference, the wide split learns to communicate to the other person what they can do to make the relationship work. The simple split, like we have, Rain can become extremely wise to communicate to all of us, or to anyone truly, but particularly the people that you're in relationship with, whether it's business or family or love or partner or, or friend or however, that you can actually bring to them what you've learned about these 4 gates, not necessarily what they have to do. So they don't necessarily have to do anything. It's not like you have to learn to sit still and be still for me. That's the not self of it. The not self is you're hooked on people who have gate 52 because they're meditating, sitting still, and you're like, yes, finally I can clear my head and not have all this hustle and bustle and of these other people don't and then you find someone with 53 and you go, wow, they're always down for an exciting new adventure, and then you become attached to them for that gate. That's the real not self. So this really answers the question of, when you're split and somebody bridges your split, you're like, yeah, it's kind of what you want. Yes, they kind of fit your criteria of the dream person. Your dream person has all 4 of these. Your dream person probably is creatively expressive and is has a great sense of the logical direction things should go, and is very still and has a great experiential energy for new experiences, always ready to go out for a new experience. So, I mean, but again, as it deconditions, it changes qualities. Now, here will be what's really funny for the wide split. So for the simple split, the change of quality is this. You are no longer like a marionette on the string where somebody can dangle one of those gates and you become hooked on that. You're no longer hooked on it because you see that you can get it other places. You can get it from a cafe. Yeah. You can get it from a stranger. You can get it from all sorts of different people, so you don't get hooked on getting it from a certain partner. So it breaks the spell that partner is the only source of that. And you start to understand mechanically, oh yeah, I do feel something's missing because, wow, it's true. There are other people that have 53, but Christy, her 53 is different than theirs, or whatever. You get to learn who has the differentiated, who's really a cookie cutter kind of boring expression of it, and who's really this unique once in a lifetime. You go, wow, I've never met someone who had a 53 like that before, or whatever it is, that excitement and so on. And that's what you're looking for. Now, it's so different from the wide split. And for the wide split, I gotta look at your chart here because I'm gonna have so much fun doing this. So for the simple split, the difference again, I just want to get the difference between being hooked on it to then being free from it and being able to watch and learn. I guess I didn't really finish the formula. And ultimately bring what you've learned. So you ultimately get to bring to all of us, what relationships really need? You need stillness for relationships to work. But you wouldn't just tell somebody they need stillness as the keynote. You would have learned intimately how important stillness really is, what stillness really is, how much pressure there is in stillness. Sometimes it's the hardest thing in the world to slow down. You know what I mean? And just to sit in stillness. It's like weightlifting. Like, that's stillness, but it's still pressure. You're still exerting. So you get to learn all the different ways stillness helps relationships. New beginnings. You get to learn how important it is for relationships to be able to have a new beginning, to have a new phase, to have a second chance. How important it really is. Maybe you can't start that new beginning, but you know that that's what the relationship needs. And then you talk to Christy, and Christy says, hey, let's spend a week, and and it takes you and the partner or something, and you have a new beginning together because neither of you has 53. But you've learned together that the value of having the new beginning. But ultimately, each of these becomes you get to become an expert on how that can help a relationship. You'll notice that not every gate can be a bridging gate. I think only 61 gates can be bridging gates. But what that tells us is that there are 61 things that can help relationships. And that's the job of the simple splits, to learn what those 61 things are and to be differentiated. Because otherwise we get these homogenized, stupid, boring versions that say, there's 1,000,001 people that have a book. There's 1,000,001, not self-split definitions out there who write a book that says 10 ways to spice up your love life. Their splits on 36. They think all you need to do is go, on a vacation together. Or their split is on 50 and they think all you have to do is care. Or split is on 27 and all you have to do is care and be responsible, and then it's all about caring. Everyone has their little lens where they say it's all about this. And as the not self, pardon?
But with her, it would only those parts that bridge for her would only.
I mean, it's actually true. It's like those books are like written for like one type of person, the person that has that bridge. And like, that's the only person it's true for. But what's funny is that's the not self of it, because they're saying everyone should do this. The true self, you don't have to just kind of put out a homogenized, yes, this is important for relationship. You get to really learn through your own experience of these 4 gates. You get to learn how it's like actually becomes, it's like how the relationship, how both of you in the relationship can do those things together, even though neither of you have that gate. It's like you're designed to become an expert on new beginnings in relationships and what's the best way to do it. And you can learn a million techniques. Undefined G-Center can still know great restaurants. They've just collected them. I think of the undefined as a cup. You have a cup that fills up with best ways to start something anew. Just like you with your hanging gate, even though it's not a bridging gate, have a cup that can fill up with all the techniques you can learn for ending. You can say, I learned this amazing technique from Rain. When you're done with the relationship, you should go over and write every last blah, 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 and do it this way. You learn some amazing way to do it. And it's like you fill up with these ways. So that's how the simple split is really here, to fill up with techniques to make relationships work. And if they're really not self, they're just going to be homogenized versions of it. You'll still see glimmers of brilliance peek through sometimes. But, if they're really living their design, they're going to be able to really express in a very differentiated way the very specific learnings of those bridging gates. I have gate 52. I don't know anything about stillness. I don't know if I'm good or bad at it. I don't know if I have a really healthy feeling vibe of it or not. Mike has gate 9. I know that you have gate 9. So you've been able to sample different 52s. Different 52s come along, and you get to feel from those 52s what that 52 feels like. And one person has a stillness where it seems like they really aren't healthy. Something's going on in their root. Say they have that 28-38, and they're not really doing things that bring them purpose. So they have a really frustrated, built-up root energy that feels really bad to be around. It's not going to give you that same feeling of grounding and stillness. My root is defined through 952. That's going to have a different way of feeling, because that's a compromise. It's going to feel like you can connect to my stillness, but ultimately you go, hey, I want to focus on this, but I'm focused on something else. Okay, now the wide split, as I was saying, the formula is there's still going to be 2 versions of it. Now the not self version is very clear. The not self of the wide split is nothing's my fault, everything is the other person's fault. So literally, me and Mike were seeing our wide split friend. He would love if he sees this impression, I hope, of, man, she's crazy. Because that's what he'll say about every relationship. She's crazy. Now after every relationship, she's always crazy. And you start to wonder for the wide split, it's like if you have one bad housemate, well, that sucks. But if you have 10 bad housemates, maybe you're the bad housemate, and so on. But no, that's actually not true. It's not like the not self says other people are crazy. The true self was owning up to their prominent. No, this is what I love about human design. That's some cheesy seven-centered, like made-for-TV movie shit of like the wide split character arc of like, I learned actually it was my fault all along, and actually I did projecting. No, you actually know how to make relationships work. They don't. You just get better at explaining it. That's the true self, is you just start to be able to explain it better because you're no longer like my friend who is wide split. So you have a different not self configuration, but he has undefined solar plexus, so he would be too afraid of hurting their feelings, so he wouldn't tell them what they could do to make it work. They don't know. They're dumb at relationships. You're not. You're smart at relationships. You can make it. You can tell them what they can do to make it work. So the wide split ultimately develops the nuanced communication. It's very different than the simple split, where you're here to become an expert on these 4 different areas where you kind of hyper focus on the stillness and on the, you know what I mean? The wide split, yeah.
With just going from my own personal experience, being knowing I'm a wide split now, it's like sometimes some person will bring this part of me, but then the other part of me is not totally fulfilled, or they'll bring this part of me and then this part isn't fulfilled.
It's absolutely true. You have the same experience of Mike, where you have a pure individual mental projector 6124 as living in the body of a sacral generator, or as an emotional sacral generator. But I mean, you can see how, and to read the wide split chart, by the way, you can see that what's missing is always perceived as missing in the other. Right. And that's part of the trick. You can step over it. That's part of the trick there. It's always perceived as missing in the other. Now, the fact is, it's not like for you where what's perceived as missing is like yourself. You're like, if only I could find that stillness, I would be okay. If only I could make new beginnings, I would be okay. If only, the direction and the expression, and you can read about the gates that there are. That's kind of the simple split almost has to learn this self-love of, I don't need to be those things, I don't need to do those things. I can become the expert on those things, but I don't necessarily need to be those myself. The expert on them is not the person. The expert on food is not the chef. It's the critic. You know what I mean? And you can be the expert on all those things. Well, for the wide split, it's a little bit different. It's like what you see is what's always lacking in the other. And so the other is seen as kind of ultimately lacking in the ability to communicate, because we have the wide split on the throat. And you see that they're really poor communication. They're poor communicators. Well, you're equipped to be able to learn 1,000,001 communication techniques, but unlike the single deaf, which is like, here's how communication is important for relationships, you're literally just able to pinpoint with laser accuracy over time as you practice exactly what the other person could do to make the relationship work. So literally it can be as simple as, well, if you're here at 5 p.m. on Thursday, everything or whatever, that can make the relationship work or whatever, but it's not going to be about timing, because it's not about G-center, it's about throat. If you can communicate with me and tell me, now what it is, it's going to be 56, it has to be stimulating, 23, it has to be able to explain itself, it has to be structured. And it's not that you feel like you have to explain yourself, it's you feel they have to be able to explain themselves, and to be able to tell them in detail how they can explain themselves, and to be able to explain to them how they can explain themselves in some sense. You also have this 35 over here, that's one of them, where it's going to be like, I want someone who can really, like they are never good at talking about their feelings. Okay, 35 people can really express their feelings. When you're missing 35, it feels like there's this lack of talking about feelings. Like why aren't you guys doing that? Well, you can actually tell them, and you can learn, not just in some generic way that anyone could say, talk about your feelings. You can actually learn what it really means to talk about your feelings in a very nuanced, very subtle way, and to really deliver to them. So the people you're in relationships with, you can kind of tell them what will make the relationship work. The single definition doesn't really necessarily need to tell them. The single definition can just learn on their own. But they both have a not-self version and a true-self version. The not-self is just going to never really learn that you have the power. You have the power to make the relationship work. Now, we're going to close up, but I want to leave it on one last little point here. People always ask, what about when a split is with a split? Well, this sounds like heaven to the splits. It absolutely does, because they go off on their honeymoons, and they go on their whitewater rafting, where they spend the night together every night and wake up the next day and go at the same time. So, I mean, oh my God. Single definition people, triple split, this confinement is kind of scary. But for the split defs, all Ra kind of says, I think it's true, and I have a sort of hunch about it, is that whether you're wide split or simple split, you really are here for the other. And the other really needs you. And neither of you needs the others. You don't need the other to teach you about how to make relationships work. So 2 split defs together, it works, but they're both ultimately trying to teach each other about it in some way or another. If they're wide splits, they're telling each other what they can do to make it work. I mean, again, I'm not going to say it's doomed. I'm sure there's very successful 2 wide splits, or a wide and a simple, or a simple and a simple. I'm sure that works, but I'm just saying there's going to have its own dynamic where they're going to have to decondition from their innate urge to teach the other how to make it work. Because ultimately, you can teach someone in a relationship how to make it work through their communication. You can teach them through what you've learned from your observations about the value of these particular aspects, the value of stillness in a relationship, the value of even having a good direction, a shared sense of direction together, having a logical direction, making predictions together. Like, you get to become an expert on why relationships that plan together stay together, why relationships that create together stay together, and that are creative in their expression. Make the relationship a little different. Have a Brock Pierce wedding, the crypto millionaire who did it at Burning Man, and he had dominatrixes with strap-on dildos, and he had that's a gate 8 kind of thing. Creative expression, something that only you think is interesting, and it's personal, and that's fine. It's important for relationships to have their personal things that only they have, their inside jokes, their inside pet names, their inside language. That's all gate 8 stuff too. So you can see how, as a simple split, it's learning about the value of relationships, the gates for relationships. As a wide split, it's really learning what the other person can do. If it's on the throat,
that
it's
means you have to
communicating.
be with someone who's willing to do those things.
It also means that you can be empowered in yourself as you decondition more and more and more to be a better and better communicator at telling them exactly and pinpointing as a laser precision what they can do. You can become, it's like take the power in your hands of being able to communicate to them. Now you can still choose to take or leave them, or you can, you know, you can respond to have the emotional clarity and so on and follow your strategy and authority. But
Just
but
seems
no,
it's because I'm like white split that I like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want a really like intellectual mental person that I can vibe with, and other times I'm like, no, I want someone who's more like free spirited. Like I can't decide kind
yeah,
of the
you do have
person that
these
I
two
want because
two sides. Yeah,
it's like two sides within me. I feel that a lot, that I'm like, I don't really know who I should be dating.
It's
right
the
now. I mean,
tribal
I've tried
and
this and I've
individual,
tried that
yeah.
and I've tried this and I've tried that. Like
you're
kind
of two
the
minds. You're of an
polarity.
individual, totally individual 6124, then a 59-6 and a 40-37,
Right.
which wants to be part of a whole and wants to have real talk and intimacy and have that like real bond that only really happens when you do have a certain level of glue. It can't have the on-offness of the individual. So it is of two minds, and you know, and I think it's just realizing that as you decondition more and more, you know, you'll be able. Like these openness areas, you'll become experts on these, particularly the ones that bridge. Like I don't think necessarily the spleen, you can become an expert on the spleen and the root in its own way, but because they don't bridge, and even the G center is a longer bridge, I think the throat becomes this crucial part for you. And, you know, even though it takes more than one gate to bridge, you can look at those gates and you can look at how, as the not self, you're going, that relationship didn't work because he never talked to, or they, I don't want to make any assumptions, never talked about their feelings. They were boring, gate 56, stimulating, and they couldn't explain themselves. Gate 23, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's,
totally.
and you're just
Oh my
blaming
God,
it
that
on
was
them.
like my last relationship.
Yeah, you're like, that relationship was like, they didn't have anything stimulating to say. It was boring to me. They couldn't explain themselves. They just were like a freak. It just didn't make sense to me. And they didn't talk about their feelings. And, you know, that is the not self story. Now, again, as the true self, it's not like you go, geez, actually, it was my fault. But you do learn your part in it as a communicator.
Right.
As a communicator that can tell them what they need to do to
like
make the relationship work.
it's funny because I did that. Like I was in this relationship and then it ended, and then I was like, well, if it's going to start again, this is what needs to happen, and this is the only way I will enter this. And this was before human design, so.
Yeah.
But I was like, and they were like willing to do that for a while, and then they decided they didn't want to do that anymore, and that's when it ended.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Well, you'll see also, we should talk about undefined G-center next time. I think we're going to wrap up
Yeah.
this time. Thank you for letting me use Rain. I know you have to leave. I'll give you a little hug if I can. Thanks for letting me use your chart today. That was
for all the
super,
great info.
that was super good. I really appreciate that. And yeah, we can wrap it up, but maybe next time we'll do more.
Yeah.
Well, I
Fun
just
to
need to
talk
go to
about
work
this
tomorrow. You don't
subject.
have
So what is the persona of desire then? If you said the persona of hope is the guru, then what's the
It is the priest.
priest?
And Mike knows about him too. He does. Yeah, that was scary about the laptop. Good thing it's okay. I mean, it's fine. These things are built, you know, unibody. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little scary. Yeah,
Slide
no, it's
away.
fine. Nothing, crack or nothing.
There was one thing that he said, like Ra was saying earlier, that the wide split has.
The dark.
What was it? I wrote it down.
Yeah, just about done. Thanks for watching, everybody. I see some viewers right now.
Are we done or
Still
what?
going?
Yeah.
Oh.
About the wide split.
Oh no, it was that the wide split.
The time it takes to get from the 6124, I know. It has to get all the way down
all
there.
the way down to the throat. Was that it was like, if for single definition and triple splits, it was their bridging, their hanging gates and their bridging gates were where there was more of the not self found, and is the wide split, it was more of their open centers, was where their not self conditioning was.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that's where the
it's open
conditioning is
centers
centered.
and or it's channel. Well, okay, triple split
It was
triple
like,
split
he was
it's going to
lumping
be
triple splits and single defs together, and then
yeah,
wide
well, okay,
splits
it's absolutely true that
separate.
triple split and single are together in that it's the centers for us. The wide split is center based for you, but it's kind of a hybrid because you can see that there's 3 gates within the center. So
Right.
the throat center as a whole is kind of like this relationship didn't work because of communication,
Right.
or also because of manifestation problems. We weren't able to do the things we said we were going to do. We were going to go
Right.
do this trip. We were going to make this business together. We were going to write this play together. We never did the things because the doing, the throat, is not active there. So it's kind of typically blamed. But it's really fun when you actually get the wide split charts. Not to say your chart isn't fun. In other ways, sure. But when you have the ones where it's the whole channels, like someone has a throat and a spleen, and then all the channels between throat and spleen are the bridging gates. Because then, like, you have the 4816, all of talent and skills. They go, the relationship didn't work because they didn't have the skills, and they didn't have the talent. And then the 5720, they didn't know how to survive. You know what I mean? Like, you see the blame through the channels so easily. So I think we will close it up for now. But thanks so much, Sphenic Projector. Thank you, and Louis W. Hi and bye. We're about to finish. Premiere Dame. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for watching. It's been great. We've been live streaming an hour and 22 minutes. So good for us. Yay. Design number 69. Split definition in relationships. That's a wrap. All right. End stream. Stop.